Welcome back to another edition of the Athletes Hub, guys. Another weekly roundup. A lot been going on in the football world over the last few weeks. And here with me to discuss it all, as always, is Mr. Flexx.
Yes, guys. How we doing?
Yeah. Good to see you, Flexx. As I
Yes,
mentioned
good
in
to
the
see you
intro,
too.
it's been another busy week of football activity. Again, the Premier League is not far away now. It's only a couple of days away. And I guess the whole summer we've seen a lot of transfer activity that's been taking place. Actually, before we get into it, I want to say thank you to everyone from last week who commented on our video. So again, we asked for a lot more interaction, and the Alexander Isak situation got a lot of interaction, a lot of engagement, so again, thanks to everyone for taking the time out to do that. Again, that's what we want. We want to see your opinions, we want to hear your opinions. And I think Alexander Isak is where we can begin again from this week, to be honest. This I don't know, a lot has gone on, hasn't it? I know Newcastle obviously said he's not for sale. He wants to leave. He's reportedly sold his property, or is up for sale, his property in Newcastle. Apparently, he's told the club he doesn't want to play for them anymore. And Eddie Howe has also said that the game against Aston Villa this weekend he won't take part in it. He's not going to feature. So it's only a question of, because I don't see a way back for Isak. I don't see a way back for a player who's said he doesn't want to play for the club no more. He went to his old club to train rather than drawing up with the preseason squad during their tour. And obviously, he's put his house up for sale, reportedly. So I don't see this as a player who's going to have any future at Newcastle. But I think the question for me is, if it doesn't happen this summer, I feel like probably in January we'll see him move, because I don't see a way back for him. I think when you kind of go to these lengths to kind of make it clear you don't want to play for the club or the club that employs you, I don't really see how you can kind of move forward from that, to be honest. So, I mean, he's not going to feature this weekend. That's been confirmed. But do you see any way back for him at Newcastle?
Mate, there's always a way back. There's always a way back. If their squad gets depleted at some point between, let's say, the window closing in January and he's needed and he scores a couple of goals, all of a sudden, Isak is back. At the end of the day, the club still pay him. At the end of the day, the club still hold his registration. So if you're needed to work, then you're gonna work. Do you see what I mean? Because otherwise, if we go into territories where it's breach of contract and so on and so forth. Will a move happen before the window closes? Very likely, and that's what I would say. So I think when the numbers get closer to what Newcastle are demanding, then something will happen. Liverpool at the minute, from the showing we saw throughout the Community Shield game they had with Crystal Palace, they could probably hold out and wait, to January, maybe even the summer, and the price comes down. So Liverpool also have a decision to make. Do we just wait and naturally hit that price from that magical 150 million becomes closer to that 100 million, or maybe even less? And do we wait even longer after January and see where we are in the table? And maybe even another striker comes up, who is doing, good numbers at that time and maybe cost a whole lot less. So we'll see how the situation plays out. He's a quality player, a player that anyone would want in their team, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think with the asking price, reportedly is 150 million pounds. But I think we'll probably see a situation where that comes down a bit, whether it's between 100 and 120. I don't think Liverpool will fork out the 150 million that Newcastle reportedly asking for. But I feel like with Isak, the player itself, people have said that he hasn't handled himself well. Where it's not really a good look for a player who came to the Premier League. Newcastle did well for him. Of course, he's done well for the club as well. Helped them win their first major trophy in 70 years. But I think fans now want players who are committed to the club, because I get he's obviously had his head turned. Liverpool are a great football club with a lot of history, but this is the same player who signed a contract not long ago as well. And every time a player signs a new contract, they always come up with these statements saying, "I'm happy to commit my futures to this club. I love being here. I love playing here. I love the fans." And how that can change within a couple of months. Again, nobody can predict the future. But when you sign a contract, you're expected to be committed at least. And again, if you do want to move, that's fine. It happens. But you still want to conduct yourself the same way. You want to still conduct yourself in a good way. You can still get your head down, still train, still play the games. And if Liverpool are going to come for you, they'll get you. If clubs really want to play, they always go back in for them. But for you to sort of, I guess, down tools, as they say, and not train and not want to play anymore, that's not a great look for fans, particularly because all fans ask for is players who are committed. I get it. If you want to move, no one's going to be against him wanting to get moved to Liverpool or another big club. But I think it's your conduct whilst you're still at your current club. You know, you've got to show respect to your employers, your teammates, the coach. And I think fans are they're not upset that he wants to move on. I think it's the way he's handled it, which is a bit disappointing, to be honest.
I mean, when compared with other players that potentially have moves on, you know, we're looking at the Crystal Palace boys, Eze, Gerhi, you know, even Jack Grealish, you know, like all of these players conducting themselves with professionalism, you know, to whether they are still staying or to where they're going. I don't know if Liverpool and Liverpool fans want a player that has displayed this level of petulance, you know. For me, that doesn't look good, because what if Real Madrid come calling when he's at Liverpool? Is he then going to revert to type and then behave how he was behaving whilst, you know, being contracted to Newcastle? You know, it throws up these type of, you know, questions, you know, and only Isak knows why he's behaving this way. You know, is it from him, or is it the agent who's telling him, you know what, throw your toys out of the pram so we can get this move? You know, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yes, yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned Jack Grealish there. He's obviously been confirmed a loan move to Everton for the upcoming season. Were you surprised by the move to Everton? I know there was a lot of talk about him maybe going back to Aston Villa, or maybe going abroad as well. So were you kind of surprised by him moving to Everton? I think Everton, again, good manager in David Moyes. They've got a new stadium now as well, so that's something to be optimistic and excited about. But again, Everton in the last few seasons have been struggling towards, you know, they've had relegation battles. They've not necessarily found it easy in the Premier League in the last couple of seasons. So I guess it's a question of, is he going to go into a team that's going to struggle this season, or is it a perfect environment for him to really flourish and show us what we saw from him at Aston Villa, where that was a player who was free flowing, who had a responsibility in the team, wasn't scared to make a mistake, wasn't, I guess, restricted to tactical instructions. So do you kind of see Grealish to Everton as a positive move?
Yes, I mean, it's positive in both ways, you know. Of course, Grealish, World Cup year, you want to be playing so you can have the best possible chance of being on that flight to the US and Mexico and Canada. Then you've also got to look at the benefits from the Everton side of things. You know, you're getting I would say, fringe world-class player in your ranks, you know, and I would say a player of his ability naturally makes other players play better and improves the level that's around the club as well. So I think it will come down to, you know, we know Moyes to be very defensive minded in his approach to games. So it'll be interesting to see how he utilizes the weapons Jax brings to the field of play, to see how it goes. You know, I think his best position is in the 10, as opposed to coming off the left as an inside forward. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how that works, because currently they don't have a forward that could probably finish off the chances that possibly Jack will make. You know, so I feel like Everton as a club still have a bit to do in the market.
I mean, I think Beto, towards when Moyes came in last season, halfway through the season, I think Beto, you know, proved that he could be that player that can finish off the chances. I think under Sean Dyche, he struggled. I think the whole team struggled to score goals and create chances. But when Moyes came in initially, Beto was on fire, to be fair, and he was in amongst the goals. So we could probably see, as you mentioned, Jack playing in a 10 position with Beto up front. That could end up being a very good combination in a way, because Beto's, you know, he's big, he's powerful, he can finish, that's clear. He's strong in the air as well. So these are all attributes that could actually mesh well with Jack's playing style. So, and again, I don't think Jack's going to struggle with playing time, because at Aston Villa, you know, attacking wise, he'll be the standout player. That's a fact. I know Ndiaye did well last season as well, but Jack Grealish, when he gets going, is a great football player. So again, he won't struggle with playing time. It's only a question of, will Everton struggle again, or with him coming in now, is that really going to boost the team and I guess see them maybe hopefully finishing in the I guess mid-table to top half?
Yeah, I mean, I think a mid-table finish is on the cards, if not maybe just slightly off that. But it'll all depend on, how the likes. I mean, Bournemouth have lost their whole back four, so it would all depend on how those teams that are also in and around that area, how they do in the transfer market, and then whose team gels the fastest, with the new players that have onboarded. So only time will tell. I mean, hey, we're just a couple of days away from, the first games kicking off. And although it's just one game in, we get an idea to, the style, managers want to implement, going forward, so it will be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Isak situation before, I mean, it reminds me of another player who's actually made the headlines this summer as well, Alexander Garnacho. It's clear that his future at Man United is obviously away from the club now. And I guess there were reports earlier on that, or throughout the last couple of weeks, that he's actually given the club an ultimatum. And that ultimatum is either moves to Chelsea or he doesn't play again. And again, we're talking about players who are not conducting themselves professionally, giving clubs ultimatums because they want to get their move. And I think it's just disappointing for a player of Garnacho's. Again, I don't have any issue with Garnacho, I guess, wanting to get a move. If he's not in Amarim's plans, okay, get a move. But it's giving clubs an ultimatum, holding clubs to ransom. That's what I don't like. And again, I think Garnacho is a good football player. I don't think he's a bad football player. I think he's a player who's got a lot of potential, great quality we've seen in instances at United. But I feel like if you're going to be a player who's going to kind of put clubs in these positions, then again, it's not a great look for you. Again, you're young in the game. You've still got a lot to learn. You've still got lots to achieve, I'd argue as well. So for you to feel as if you're in a position to put a club in that position, again, if Chelsea sign him, again, is it going to work out for him? If it doesn't work out for him, what's he going to be like when he's time to move on? These are all questions. I mean, as a Chelsea fan, would you be excited with Garnacho signing? And again, what's your thoughts on his conduct?
I mean, speaking as a Chelsea fan, definitely not excited by his signing at all. For me personally, he's a good player, but he's just not a Chelsea player, and I don't feel he fits the profile of the club. And so for me personally, I feel it's a good business move because you can get someone who has quite a bit of potential, as we've all seen, and we could basically, move him on for more money, which is the philosophy of our club anyway. So from a business perspective, I fully understand why we would go in for a Garnacho. But from a playing perspective, I feel that we already got players that do what he already does. I can say Tariq George, who's come through our academy, is a very similar profile to Garnacho. And in fact, the signing of Garnacho blocks the pathway of Tariq George, who I would rather see in the team, And so we've got Gittins, we've got Neto, we've got George, who might be there, might not be there, and we've got others, that are right there and can be utilized. So for me, I don't see the need for Garnacho, but from a purely business standpoint, if you can get him for 35, 40, maybe 45 million, and in 18 months, he's gone for 55, 60, 65 million, that's profit, and we know in the Premier League, Chelsea are the best club at making profits on players. Currently net spend, I think, is just around 30 million, thereabouts. We've sold well over 200 million pounds of players, bought in 200 plus million pounds of players. And so the business is making sense. But from a playing perspective, I just don't see how he fits. I'm ready to be proven wrong. If he comes in and does a fantastic job, gets, I don't know, let's say 15 GA, and for those that don't know what GA means, goals and assists, then you know what? He's proven everybody wrong, and there is a lane for him at Chelsea. But if he comes in and performs to the level Sancho, let's say, performed, which wasn't bad, but it didn't set the world alight, then we'll probably look to move him on again in 18 months and make a decent profit. He goes off to Italy or someplace like that, and we cut our losses and find the next person to bring through the ranks. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with the Sancho, I think he was alone, wasn't he? So I guess it was an opportunity for Sancho to get back playing football and prove people wrong. And obviously, if it didn't work out, then Chelsea would send him back to United or they could sign him. But if Chelsea were to sign Garnacho permanently, which I think for me was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I did expect Garnacho, if he was to leave United, to maybe head abroad to Italy or Spain, and carry on his career. So him wanting to go to Chelsea with the options you mentioned already is a bit surprising to me. But he obviously wants to remain in the Premier League and he feels as if he's good enough. And again, I think he's got good potential, Garnacho. I like him as a player. I think when he gets going, he's a good football player. But he's still very young. He's still got a lot to learn. And for players to feel as if in a position to hold clubs to ransom and to I think that they're better than what they actually are, again, it's kind of a dangerous move, to be honest. But talking about Chelsea, though, Nico Jackson apparently is reportedly that he wants to kind of explore his options and leave Chelsea. Are you surprised by that? I know we've spoken about it before, but him wanting to leave Chelsea, does that surprise you at all?
I mean, if I'm Nico Jackson, I'll be looking at the boys that have just come in, and then I'll also be thinking, you know what? Yeah, maybe it is about time to keep it moving because, Pedro, João Pedro has come in through the World Cup, Club World Cup, and set, his stall out and set the standard quite high. Throughout preseason as well, he's maintained that standard. And then the Lap has looked at that and just thought, you know what? I'm here to also, be a first team player, first team regular. He's come in and he's banged a couple of goals as well. And the opportunities Nico has had, he just hasn't delivered when it's been his. He hasn't kept himself in that conversation is what I'm trying to say, and so naturally he's going to need to find a place where, he is the main man up front. He's had, 2+ years where he has been the focal point and he has been the main player, and he hasn't done a bad job considering the team is constantly changing, constantly evolving, etc. And he has done a decent job, but he hasn't been what we would say prolific, in his finishing abilities. So
yeah.
With that being said, I would think that a move is definitely on the cards. It would be beneficial to himself, and he would be a good asset to teams that require, like, for example, I would, if I was Everton, I'll look at Nico Jackson and think, yeah, that can work. If I'm Newcastle, I'll be thinking, yes, that can work. Those type of clubs, I think he fits that kind of profile, so we'll see. There's still a few weeks left to go. We're looking at 80 million. I don't think we will get a clear 80 million for him. I think it would be in the regions of some 55, 60 plus add-ons. And then, he's on his way.
I agree. I think even if I was I think the Newcastle one does make sense, to be honest, if they were to get rid of Isak. I think even if Newcastle were able to get Jackson on a loan deal with the option to buy next summer, I think that could be a sensible move. He gets his first team football because if he goes to Newcastle, he's going to play every game because clearly lacking that strike. And I think it's an opportunity for Jackson as well, because I know there's been a lot of talk about him not really being prolific, as you mentioned, and not really being the classic number 9 that Chelsea's always had, whether it's Didier Drogba or Diego Costa, whoever he is. And this will give him a chance to prove people wrong in the Premier League. So it could be a sensible move for him and make sense for both parties as well, to be honest. Another transfer story that kind of came to my attention was the possibility of Savinho leaving to go to Tottenham. So Savinho joined Man City last summer, and I was actually surprised by the fact that City would want to get rid of Savinho, because watching him last season in some games, he was actually quite lively. He was on the wing, making things happen. Obviously, they've sold Grealish now, and he's gone to Everton, and De Bruyne has left. So I was surprised that City are trying to get rid of more attacking players. I mean, could you see that move actually taking place, Savinho leaving Man City?
No, I mean, for me, that one's come as a bit of a shock, given his talent and given the fact that it's only been 12 months, So I thought he would be given more of an opportunity, given that he's had a good season in the previous season. He didn't have a bad season. So it's interesting to see what Pep is trying to cook at Manchester City. I feel like he's probably gone into the hyperbolic time chamber and he's contacted Cerebro and he's figuring things out, to come, and snatch that Premier League title back. And, Savinho just might not be in his plans. Similarly to Edison, might not be in the plans as well. So it's interesting to see what they're cooking. I feel like they've brought in, creative attacking midfielders, so maybe the system might change a little bit. Currently, Doku is the only winger that they have of dynamism, who can really, beat a man and change the pace of a game playing out wide. And I thought Savinho is of that same mold. So interesting why they want to get rid. But if they move him on and they sign Rodrigo from Real Madrid, who Pep is a very big admirer of, that's not a bad move. That's actually it's an upgrade.
Yeah. So, it's true. Yeah, I think that they're both as well. I mean, they're both similar players, aren't they? To be fair, but I always think of it as well. Teams who are going for all these trophies, playing in full competitions, you need squad depth. But it seems like everybody wants to play every minute of every game. But again, the best teams always have squad depth. And we spoke about maybe Chelsea, maybe letting Nico Jackson go. They've also got Delap in there, João Pedro, so they've got a lot of depth in the attacking areas. But as you mentioned, like City, they've lost. I think Rodri's going to be out for a couple of weeks. De Bruyne's left. Grealish is gone now. So I feel like Man City's attacking options should be a priority. So the fact that letting Savinho go, I'd probably argue and say, well, why not add Rodrigo to the mix rather than letting Savinho go? Because you get that squad depth. They've both got Rodrigo's got the Champions League experience as well, so that could be a great help. And I think City are in a position now where they're having to be a bit more dynamic because Liverpool now going to be challengers. Arsenal now have got the striker, so they look like in a good position to challenge. Tottenham, I think, again, they're not going to challenge, but be thereabouts in and around it. Chelsea as well. So I don't think City are going to have an easy time trying to rebuild this squad and challenge again. So the fact they're trying to let players go, for me, is a bit of a surprise, to be fair. But you mentioned Edison there, and there's been talk of Gianluigi Donnarumma at PSG wanting to leave the club, which for me was a bit surprising. Him wanting to leave PSG, Champions League winner, he's won the Euros with Italy as well. Very well-respected goalkeeper, among the best, actually, right now in Europe. And he wants to leave PSG. There's been talk about him going to Man City, potentially your club, Chelsea, as well. And obviously Man United have been linked to him as well. I mean, are you surprised by him wanting to leave PSG?
I mean, it's an interesting one. Surprised, yes, because I feel like, that team, after the high they've had of last season, and also the high of winning the Super Cup yesterday, although without Donnarumma, I feel like that's a group that you would want to try and keep together for at least another season, and see how far you can really push that group.
He's still quite young, isn't he? He's nowhere near his peak yet.
No. I feel he's one of those wonder kid goalkeepers who out of the box has just been amazing the whole time, and I feel like everyone else has been catching up to him as opposed to him catching up, to the level that's there. So for me, I feel like it's definitely a shock. I saw a cryptic post from Donnarumma where he says that somebody wanted him out, so whatever that means. Does he fit in?
Doesn't it? It's all political now.
It's political, he's playing at a club that, is highly political in France, so it's interesting. Where does he fit in at Manchester City with the way they play? Because he's not particularly known for being good with his feet. So I don't think so. City have also signed James Trafford as well, who was supposed to be, the understudy to Edison. And when Edison leaves, he's been promised first team football. So these things, I don't know if City will sign him. But then again, he is an opportunity. You look at Manchester United and Onana's performances. For me, Onana makes mistakes, but I feel that we see more mistakes from Onana simply because he's under constant bombardment more than other goalkeepers are. So naturally, you see more mistakes.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I think that, you look at Onana, particularly at Ajax and Inter Milan. I feel like at Ajax, his team had a lot of possession. They were dominating the game more or less most of the time. Inter Milan, they played a defensive style of football. You had 5 defenders and they weren't as exposed as much. But I always feel like you mentioned about him being exposed. But I think the best goalkeepers, listen, I think with David De Gea, there's no question that he made a lot of mistakes towards the end of his time at the football club. That's a fact. But De Gea, I don't think until that period, was never a liability in the team. He was actually the player who got United out of trouble a lot of the time. He was player of the year 3 years in a row.
Problem.
But I don't think Onana. I think Onana is a great goalkeeper. I think there's a lot of mistakes he's made to the you say a lot of bombardment. Look at some of the goals he's conceded, right? I don't think these are goals for a player of his caliber, teams he's played for, the competitions he's played in. I don't think he should be making those mistakes, to be honest.
But you have to ask yourself the question, right? That the mistakes he is making were the same mistakes De Gea was making as he was on his way out. So it goes to show, from my perspective, that this is more of a systemic issue at the club, more so than the goalkeeper, because the goalkeeper was fine at his previous clubs. There was no issues with him at his previous clubs. So I feel that even is it Bayender, who's your second goalkeeper, he makes the same mistake. So there's something inherently wrong with the way goalkeepers are being coached at United.
Well, no, the thing is, that's it. But my point is that for a period of time, for at least probably at least 5, 6, 7 years, De Gea wasn't a problem at United. He was actually getting the team out of trouble. He was saving them a lot of points.
Remember,
yes, he made mistakes towards the end of his time there. But go back and watch the goals. These are goals. These are goalkeeping errors. This has nothing to do with where he's getting beat. He's near post. He wasn't saving with his feet like he normally did. These are goalkeeping errors. This is not a situation or an effect where the team has put him under this pressure. These are keepers making these mistakes, playing out from the back when they shouldn't do it, missing the near post when they shouldn't be missing the near post.
You're misreading it. You're misreading it, because looking at it, right, De Gea was at his best during the Ferguson time frame.
Probably Moyes and Van Gaal and Mourinho. I think Ferguson, he struggled when he came in, won the league under Moyes, had a great season, and then Van Gaal took over. And I think for about 3-4 years, he was player of the season for those four seasons. He wasn't an issue. He was keeping
but you have to look at it from this perspective. There is a massive problem if your goalkeeper is player of the season. That means your goalkeeper is overused, overstretched, and shouldn't be in those positions to even win such an award. Right, that's the point I'm making, right? And so we're now looking at a goalkeeper who's found himself in that same systemic issue and is not coping as well as De Gea did at his peak, right? So when De Gea fell off, then those goals were going in. Now, you've made mention about goalkeepers playing from the back, right? And when they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
If you've been instructed to do it, right, no matter the consequences, which is what I've been told some goalkeepers are told, right? Under no circumstances hoof it long. I don't care if you make a mistake, play the pass, and that's your instruction and you do it. That's not your fault. That is the fault of those that are coaching you and those that are instructing you. So for me, I feel that for United, yes, it would help if you had a goalkeeper who maybe, was better at some of these situational saves that you have to make because things have gone catastrophically wrong. But I feel from a coaching perspective, they're also not being helped, and that's I think more so a major issue than the goalkeeper, because I feel like it doesn't matter what goalkeeper you put in there, similar to Chelsea, it doesn't matter what goalkeeper you put in that goal, right now it looks like we will just concede because the back four is not good enough. So Donnarumma being a elite goalkeeper, will make a difference for any of these clubs because he's an elite goalkeeper. But if he's given those same instructions as the other goalkeepers to play out from the back, play with his feet, we will see those same mistakes.
I agree. I agree, but I feel like, again, a goalkeeper is obviously, he's I guess he starts off the stability in the football team. Whether you've got bad defense, if you've got a great goalkeeper, he starts off that stability, then you start to build up your back four, and then so on and so forth. And I think, again, I've always said, I think Onana, again, Ajax, Inter Milan, showed good traits, was a good goalkeeper, but I don't think for what United want to do right now, I don't think he's going to fit in. I feel like if Donnarumma comes in, that's a big upgrade on Onana, in my opinion. And I don't think the club's going to win anything substantial based on what I've seen for the last 2 seasons and some of the errors he's made as a goalkeeper, right? Saving with his hands, not his feet, his hands. I don't think they're winning anything significant with him as a goalkeeper. That's my opinion from what I've seen for the last 2 years. But again, this is a conversation we could have all day, to be honest. But a few things I want to touch on. Balotelli, apparently he's gone to the 4th tier of Serie A. I mean, quickly on his career, did you ever think you'll see Balotelli in the 4th tier of Serie A? Because this is a player who saw it break through Inter Milan, came to the Premier League, won the Premier League, and had a very good Euro in 2012. and he showed glimpses of what he can do as a football player. You know, on his day, he was unplayable. But it just seems as if after Man City, there was just a steady decline where he went to Liverpool, didn't work out, went to Milan, didn't work out. And he's just been kind of floating around ever since. I mean, what's your thoughts on his career? Because, again, it's a player of great potential, great talent, but we've just not seen it. We've not seen it on a consistent basis for whatever reason.
I feel like, this is just a player that just wants to keep playing football. Nothing more than that. I don't look beyond it more than that. He just wants to keep playing. Maybe he sees playing in the fourth tier as a way where he can, scratch that itch of being a footballer, going through certain routines, etc. As he, just kind of, fades into something else, So for me, Balotelli, of course, similar to Donnarumma, right out of the box, he was a very good player. Of course, we didn't see him be that consistent with his abilities over the years, but through the challenges he's had through personal life and his footballing life, he's made the best out of what he had. And for me, I feel like maybe playing at the fourth tier is definitely better than playing Sunday league, so why not?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you clearly tell his passion for football, but I feel like, again, a player who had that ability and had those tools that he was given as a football player. We saw what he did in the Premier League when he was on his game. We saw what he did in Euro 2012, particularly in the semi-final against Germany. We saw what he was capable of. So I feel like him playing in the fourth tier is probably, I don't think he probably pictured himself being there. But again, for different reasons, that's where he is right now. But again, it shows his passion for the game. Sheffield Wednesday, I'm not sure if you've heard what's been going on at Sheffield Wednesday recently. It's been a bit of a struggle for the club. Are you aware of anything that's been going on at all?
I have no idea what's going on, and forgive me, Sheffield Wednesday fans, so on this subject, I'm going to defer to our host to update us on what's going on.
I mean, if you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan, you probably want to be in your boat and not know what's going on because it's been quite tough. It's been well reported that they've been going through a lot of financial crisis at the moment. A section of their stand has been shut down because they haven't been able to afford the checks that are necessary for them to open up that particular stand in a stadium. There's been talk about players not being paid for 2 to 3 months. Even a recent game against Leicester City, players had to travel down on their own and fund their own accommodation, which again in modern football is unheard of. You obviously teams travel together, they go to a hotel together, clubs take care of that. But Sheffield Wednesday are in a situation now where the owner just can't seem to keep up with payments for whatever reasons. I understand that they're looking for a new buyer to take over because I think in modern football, a lot of fans who watch the Premier League are not aware of Sheffield Wednesday. But again, Sheffield Wednesday at one point in England were a big club and probably still are a big club in English football terms. But at the moment, not being in the Premier League for many years, they're not really, again, looked upon as one of the major clubs in England. But at a time, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, Middlesbrough, Birmingham City, all these clubs were big clubs in England. And for a football club of that stature to be in this position where owners take over, they do a lot of good with their money. They spend it how they want to spend it. They invest in the football club. And it's all great when it's going great. But when it goes wrong to the point where your club is in a situation where, players can't be paid or facilities are not being used because they can't be operated because, again, they're not being paid for, or fans are paying for sections in a stadium and not getting a refund for it. These are all situations where it's just baffling, isn't it, really, for a football club of that stature to be run this way. And we've seen it before. We've seen clubs like AFC Wimbledon years ago go down. Derby County had a situation where going through the same thing. Clubs do struggle. Do you know what I mean? So for Sheffield Wednesday fans, there's a lot of concern that maybe they won't even finish the season. They've started their championship season, but there's concern that they might not finish the season, which is shocking to say, really. So, yeah, I think it remains to be seen what happens, and we'll keep a close eye on that. But yes, it's not great for Sheffield Wednesday fans, and hopefully they can get it sorted out. To wrap up the conversation, again, the Premier League starting in a couple of days. What's the standout game? I know we've got Liverpool and Bournemouth on Friday. I think probably the standout game is probably Man United and Arsenal on the Sunday. But again, Sunderland back in the Premier League now, and I'm eager to see how they go on. So what games are you looking forward to this weekend?
For sure, the opening game, because it's the opening game, so it's always good to see players, switch from that preseason mindset, that holiday mindset, into business mode. So definitely the opening fixture, looking forward to that, and then of course on Sunday we've got the big one, so that would always be fun because we all know a lot of United fans, Arsenal fans, and both clubs, although on different sides of the spectrum, I would say are probably still quite close to each other by way of what have you done for me lately, and looking at that, I think a victory on both ends kind of sets the stall out for what is to come. So if Arsenal do the business and do it very well, we'll all read that as title challengers, and here we go. And then if Man United do a job on Arsenal, which in recent times they have done at Old Trafford, we might be looking and reading that as, Amarim, he's doing his thing. The team is forming together, and this, we should take it probably as this is his first proper run because he came in midway through last season. So there's many ways and many different permutations, to look at that and to read into it. Me personally, I probably look into things more so when we get to 7 to 10 games into the season, to then really understand, okay, this is kind of where we are and this is the heartbeat of the league, so to speak. So that's how I see it, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. I think, when we get to sort of November, December, that's when you really get a sort of feel as to what's going to happen throughout the season. I think, again, we've got international break after the third game this season. So we play the 3 games, have the international break. And then when they come back after that, there's a real run of games in the Champions League as well. So we can see how teams are sort of getting up to speed in that point. I think, again, the key games probably Man United Arsenal, because, again, I think both teams have got a point to prove this season. Both managers have got a point to prove. I think Arteta's under immense pressure to deliver this season, especially with the signings they've made. And Amarim, again, he's come last season halfway through the year. He's got a point to prove as well. His first full season, like you mentioned, he's got his signings now, or some of the signings. So again, I think it's the first game, and you're not going to see too much from these games. I don't think it's not going to give away much. I don't think, but by starting well, it gives everyone a boost. If you go into these games and you lose the games, in bad fashion, then automatically that brings a negative vibe to everything. So I think it's key for both teams to start well this season. And don't worry, guys, it's going to be a Man United victory on Sunday. Sesko to get 2 goals. So don't worry about that. But no, I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of teams who've got a point to prove. There's been a lot of changes at different clubs. Tottenham as well got a change. Look at West Ham. They've got Graham Potter now, who's going to sort of start the season properly this year. And obviously Sunderland coming back to the Premier League, Leeds back in the Premier League as well, see how they get on, how the promoted teams get on. So I think there's a lot to look forward to this season, and a lot of interesting takes. But Flexx, we'll leave it there for this week. As always, it's been great to talk to you about what's been going on in the football world. And again, guys, keep up to date with what we're doing on YouTube, on Instagram, and TikTok now as well, guys. Don't forget, we've got a TikTok page, so keep an eye on that. Again, let us know in the comments what you think about our points. Do you agree with our opinions? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. Keep up with what we're doing every week on YouTube as well. We appreciate your support. And until next time, Flexx,
yes, sir.
See you later.
See you guys later, man. Take care.
You too, bro.